nice. You got the nice threads on. You got the jewelry glistening. Look like everybody got a little piece of that settlement money from Fox News. And that's all I have to say about that, because I'm not going to have Dominion on my ass. I love Dominion. Matter of fact, let me just say right now, my favorite voting machine is Dominion voting machines. When I go to the polls, I make sure it is a Dominion machine that I use. If your election needs the truth, put Dominion in your booth.
Stand up. From a defabricated solar-powered garden shed in Rockland County, New York, USA, this is Stand Up with Pete Dominic. On today's episode, tips on how to pass the time when you're charging the battery on that weed whacker. And now, the podcast host who can't wait to show you his new weed whacker, Pete Dominic!
You are right about that, Pete Co. That is right. I've got the lithium-powered Ego Plus Weed Whacker, which is great because you just feed the string right in. You press a button, it threads it all up. None of those headaches. Do I sound like an infomercial? I am happy to sell the power tools from that company. They should be paying me. Thank you, Pete. Sorry about your your Sacramento Kings. See, I don't pay that much attention to NBA basketball, but apparently the playoffs are happening, and some of our listeners are big fans and very disappointed, as Pico was, about the Kings losing to the Warriors, two California teams. You know what? I'm sorry. I don't care. I apologize to those who do. It is May 1st. May 1st is the 5th month of the year. Beginning today, everybody. Hello and happy May. You got your Cinco de Mayo. You got that stupid horse race, the Derby, on the 6th of May. Mother's Day is Sunday, May 14th. Of course, the last weekend of May is Memorial Day, when I need to have the garden and yard ready and all flowered up and whacked of all of its weeds. How about it? Who are you? What are you looking forward to in May? Oh, and personally, for me, the big day, May 16th. Oh, yeah. Mark it down on your calendar, because you're going to hear me talking about it. The colonoscopy for old Pete Dominic. 47 years of colon is going to be explored, and I'm going to make a big deal. We're going to have a big party. I'm going to be talking about it. I'm going to be de-stigma. Is there still a stigma to it? I think everybody's pretty much cool with getting the old colonoscopy. I mean, I'm not cool with it. I mean, think people are probably worried. As you heard my wife here on the show, she was really upset, concerned about having to go under and lose control, and what would they find up there? I'm hoping they find my favorite pair of socks I lost when I was 6-year-old little boy. All right, well, that's this month for me. Looking forward to that, just mainly for the drugs. What kind of things do you have planned for this wonderful month of May 2023? Let me know. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. I've been getting all those vitamin N pics that I requested. Thank you. Keep those coming. I love your spring photos of nature. We've got Ophira Eisenberg kicking off the month and the week. Mara Quint is traveling on assignment for stand-up. She's not. She just wasn't available. I caught up, though, with both Christian and Ophira separately on Friday. And if you want to jump to the conversation, that starts at about 20 minutes in. But you'd be missing a great recap of the White House Correspondents Dinner and more. I hope you had a good weekend. Over the weekend, of course, you heard from Roy Wood Jr. at the top, the White House Correspondents Dinner, where one of the best comedians of our generation, my friend Roy Wood Jr., The Daily Show, absolutely killed. And in a real nice moment at the end of his monologue, he thanked his mom and his dad, and his dad was a journalist and did all kinds of really important things for journalists in Alabama, black journalists, his mom for black college students in Alabama. He's a Birmingham kid, and his heart is always there. I know Roy pretty well. We started off together. He's been on the show, and I have so much admiration for him, so it was real nice when Joe Biden also shouted out Roy's pops in his comments. And that's what I texted him, by the way. Yeah, I text Roy Wood Jr., no big deal. But I said, man, you've peaked. That's it. That's the President of the United States had your dad's name leave his mouth in public. It doesn't get any better than that. And he replied by saying, please lose my number. No, he was grateful and real happy for him and his success. Hopefully you watched it. Go watch the whole thing. Very, very funny. President Biden was very funny as well. hey, he's still pretty sharp, but he's got a prompter, you know? People say he's lost a step. He didn't lose a step in his jokes. Here is making fun of Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor.
After his re-election as governor, he was asked if he had a mandate. He said, hell no, I'm straight. I'm straight.
Yeah. I thought that was the ballsiest joke President Biden made, but there were more. He went after Don Lemon as well, which probably actually made Don Lemon feel really good that he was being talked about, but still, I thought Biden nailed it. Here's another good minute or so.
I get that age is completely reasonable issue. It's on everybody's mind. And everyone, by everyone I mean the New York Times. Headline, Biden's advanced age is a big issue. Trump's, however, is not. Sorry, that was a New York Times pitch spot. I apologize.
Pitch spot? Wow.
I love that guy. I should do an interview with him. You might think I don't like Rupert Murdoch. That's simply not true. How could I dislike a guy who makes me look like Harry Styles?
Rupert Murdoch is 92.
You call me old. I call it being seasoned.
Being seasoned.
You say I'm ancient. I say I'm wise. You say I'm over the hill. Don Lemon would say that's a man in his prime.
Oh, yeah. There you go. President Biden. Nailing it, too. Nailing it. It's not easy to deliver jokes, and he delivers them with the right pauses. He did a pretty good job. I'll give him a B+. No Barack Obama, but still, I thought it was a pretty good performance by President Biden. I like President Biden, by the way. I've always said that. And frankly, his administration has gotten more accomplished in their first term than like any other. Isn't that true? I mean, I love this. Probably my favorite joke of the night because it was so true. Yeah, Joe Biden is the oldest president, but he's also gotten kind of the most done.
Despite the challenging times we live in, I look around this room and I see people that are hardworking. Many of you, I don't even think you should be working that hard. We should be inspired by the events in France. They rioted when the retirement age went up 2 years to 64. They rioted because they didn't want to work till 64. Meanwhile, in America, we have an 80-year-old man begging us for 4 more years of work. Begging. Let me finish the job. That's not a campaign slogan, that's a plea. Let me finish it. I do wish you the best of luck on the campaign trail, Mr. President. You got a lot of things that you're going to have to navigate, a lot of hurdles. You've had quite a few scandals, you know. We know about the documents, we know about the laptops, but there's been no scandal more damaging than the scandal of, is Joe Biden awake? Hey, say what you want about our president, but when he wake up from that nap, work gets done.
Yeah.
He might doze off with an infrastructure bill. Student loan forgiveness. Did we free Brittany Griner? Free Brittany Griner.
Yep. So I love that joke because of the truth behind it, but I also love this whole chunk. This was actually brilliant, what Roy Wood Jr. and I'm sure several writers who helped him out came up with, where he pointed out how ridiculous this anti-CRT movement is and the ignorance that comes along with it, and threaded that into making fun of a black man that he sees as being bought by a white man. At least that's the way I'm introducing this. Here it is, the brilliance of Roy Wood Jr. If you already heard it, it's worth hearing again.
The only thing Ron DeSantis has done that I got to give him credit for, this boy that got people riled up over stuff they can't understand. They don't know what critical race theory is. Got these people riled up about something that they can't even define, like crypto or NFTs. Ask any Republican that's anti-CRT. Ask any Republican trying to explain CRT. They sound like a Democrat trying to explain the charges against Trump. It's bad. They're everywhere. We just gotta stop it. We gotta stop it. We got the files. We got files. We'll be right back. I'm Rachel Maddow. I have files. When Rachel Maddow get them files on you, it's a wrap. I think Republicans, y'all would be surprised, man, if y'all would just be real about what CRT is. You can be surprised. Some black folks might meet you halfway. But you got to tell the truth. You can't lie to black people. Call it what it is. Anti-CRT policies are an attack on black history and an attempt to erase the contributions of black people from the history books.
Yes.
That's what it is. You are trying to erase black people.
Yes.
And a lot of black people wouldn't mind some of that erasure as long as that black person is Clarence Thomas.
And, wow, what a pivot.
A billionaire named Harlan Crow is flying Clarence Thomas all over the world on unreported trips like an Instagram model, taking Clarence to the Maldives and the beaches and all. Paid for his mama's house, this billionaire. Paid for Clarence Thomas' mama's house. I gotta give it up to billionaires. Billionaires, boy, y'all are relentless. Y'all always come up with something new to buy. Like, just when you think of everything you could buy on Earth, a billionaire will come up with a new thing. Y'all buy space rockets, you bought Twitter. This man bought a Supreme Court justice. Do you understand how rich you have to be to buy a black one on top of that? There's only 2 in stock. And Harlan Crow owns half the inventory.
Wow.
We can all see Clarence Thomas, but he belongs to billionaire Harlan Crow. And that's what an NFT is.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Wow. Sticks the landing. And the comedy god judges give him 4 stars. That was risky. It was brilliant. It was an accurate commentary. And if it's not directly that, by the way, Harlan Crow owns Clarence Thomas, it certainly would seem that the Federalist Society does. It's clear that they are influenced and corrupted by outside interests and individuals. And with a lacing criticism of the truth about the critics of CRT, what they really mean, what they're really trying to do. Oh, I just thought that was so brilliant. So bravo to Roy Wood Jr., President Biden, and the White House Correspondents Association for bringing attention to journalism and free speech and the First Amendment. They, of course, had Brittany Griner there, and she was honored by the president, asked her to stand up. They talked about all the journalists imprisoned overseas. Some of their family members were there. It's an important event, and to be honest with you, I miss going. I went, I think, 6 times, and I had some of the best times of my life. In my career, rather, at that event. I'm not going to lie to you. I like getting in a tux and hanging out with just about everybody, and a lot of great stories and memories from that. Introduced my wife to George Clooney, had a conversation with Daniel Day-Lewis, and I guess best of all, I introduced Howard Stern's producer Baba Booey to Justice Antonin Scalia while Katie Couric was watching, and that pretty surreal moment because Baba Booey called Justice Scalia Judge. He just kept calling him Judge. And I can't believe that's a thing that I witnessed and an introduction that I made. All right, just a few clips, moments from the weekend news programs, and then we'll get to my conversation with Ophira. First of all, here is just a hilarious excerpt from ABC's This Week of Republican Congressman Steve Scalise saying he has an open relationship with Kevin McCarthy, and we all just snickered because he said open relationship.
Comments. Describe your relationship with McCarthy, please.
We have a very strong, open relationship. We don't always agree on everything, but we have a very candid relationship.
He said open relationship. All right, I thought this was interesting. Here's Dana Bash on CNN State of the Union talking to Republican Congressman and House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, where she lists a set of specific ways, this is really important, in which the House Republican debt ceiling and spending cuts deal would hurt his own constituents in Minnesota. And, well, here it is.
Just quickly look deep inside what you did get passed this past week. The bill would cut all non-defense discretionary funding by 22%. That is a lot of money. And I want you to look at what the administration said it would mean just for your home state of Minnesota. Thousands would lose food, they say, rental assistance. They would pay more for college. Outpatient VA appointments for veterans could be cut. This will make a big difference if what you want, this bill, actually would become law. Big difference in the lives of Americans, especially those living paycheck to paycheck. What do you say to them?
Well, I actually challenge it. You know, you've got a president who is just told by the Washington Post that his claims on the deficit get 22 Pinocchios. They're just not true. And what you just said is just not true either, because you should scrutinize what the administration is talking about. What we did was you go back to FY22 baseline budgeting, Donna. That's just 4 months ago. That's just last year. And the budgeting, the level we're talking about was passed by Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. So to suggest that House Republicans are doing something now when you passed it just last year, and this was the numbers you were living on, that just isn't accurate. What this would do is this would be transformational. It would put this country on a trajectory where we can start to address our budget deficit. We're spending $1.29 for every dollar we're bringing in, Dana. This does not end well unless we start to fix this problem. So
just to underscore before we go, the cuts that I just laid out came from the administration. This is what they claim. You're saying that just is not true? I know this is a hypothetical, theoretical question because what you passed, as we said, is ultimately not going to become the law of the land, but these are very specific cuts that they put out there. Again, I know that's your opinion. I would hope this becomes the law of the land, and the use of cuts, these are spending reforms, and all we're doing is going back to the Biden-Pelosi budget of last year, that limit, and then with Joe Manchin's suggestion, limiting growth over the next decade by 1% annually. That's
enough from him. Well, all I have to say about this is that any Democrat, anybody who is not a Republican in the House, who is paying attention to the Republican proposal should be aghast at it, because the whole idea here is that they're trying to get spending cuts so that the economy doesn't go off the cliff. Now, if the economy goes off the cliff because we don't pay our debts, everybody loses. And if they get these spending cuts passed, a whole bunch of people would lose. But most specifically in Democrats, everybody should be making this point alone. Focus on the devastation that Republican spending proposals would be to public safety policies and jobs that Republicans care so much about, like Customs and Border Patrol. They would see a budget cut of $4 billion and a loss of 2,400 officers. They want more spending on Customs and Border Control, but their budget proposal that they're demanding make these huge cuts or they won't raise the debt ceiling deal, cuts the DEA, $692 million, 1,600 officers gone. The FBI would see a $2.8 billion budget cut and a loss of 11,000 agents, analysts, and staff. And it goes on and on and on. The Federal Bureau of Prisons, federal court system, federal prosecutors, public health cuts to the FDA, FAA, Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I mean, if you go through the details of the spending cut proposals, it's real lives and real security issues. And I can't believe Democrats haven't quite gotten on board with the messaging that I just shared. And I hope that they will. All right. Well, that's all I've got for you from the Sunday shows and the weekend. I was going to grab some more stuff, but I'm already 19 minutes in here. So let's get to my conversation with Ophira Eisenberg, which is great. Really, really great. I love talking to her. I love working things out with her about life and mental health. And we talk about the writer's strike, and we talk about the gig economy, and we talk about assisted suicide because she's up in Canada, and that was a conversation, and more. I trust her judgment. I love her humor, and I think she's brilliant, which is why I've made her a regular here on the program. You should listen to her podcast. Go subscribe. Support this woman. Parenting is a Joke is a great podcast. If you have a kid, you'll love that podcast. Go subscribe to it. Go follow her on Twitter and Instagram and see her live, buy her albums, get her book. She's just simply one of the best. I love talking to her. I love having her in my life. Let's do it with Ophira Eisenberg on the first day of May.
Yes, Ophira Eisenberg, one of my favorite people to talk to and be friends with, is here, and she's in Nova Scotia, Canada for the Halifax Comedy Special. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I miss you. It's so nice to see you. Honestly, when you said, "Hey, are you available?" and I'm like in a hotel in the middle of Halifax, I was like, "Oh my God, I need to see Pete," because it makes me feel better to see you.
Oh, the feeling is totally mutual, and I'm so glad you're available. And it's been a while. You're very busy. You really do. You're working on a bunch of different things. You got all kinds of gigs. You got a family, and your podcasts, and you seem like one of the busier people I know.
It's called the scarcity model. So all I'm reading right now in the self-help realm is about prioritizing and not doing too many things, which I do, because that is not how you're supposed to succeed. You're supposed to pick and prioritize, or else you're just scattered and nothing is done at a high level. So that's what I'm thinking about, not working as a scarcity model, is because that's what I'm doing.
Well, you and I have this thing in common, very much in common. Not even close to the same, but we both worked on radio shows for companies for a long time. And they ended my channel and my contract, and then they ended your show, I guess, and your contract. And I wonder if you could have something like that again, if you would flip the switch and go back to it, because of the kind of the one priority or the one main gig. Because you're doing a great show now. I look at your career and it's going great, but it's just like it's uncertainty, not knowing where things are coming from. What are you, if you could change anything or have anything, what would you do? Go back to that? Have that?
It's interesting because when I talk to different comics on the podcast about what it's like to raise a kid and also do this job, I will tell you, if there was I'm sure you get asked this on your podcast all the time. Of all the guests you've interviewed, is there anything that everyone always says? Well, I'll tell you what everyone always says in my show. W-2 income. That's what they say, Pete. And that just means that the instability of this career drives people in entertainment crazy. And when they have kids, they feel that extra struggle and they desire stability. And so but what comes with W-2 income. That is working for a company. And that also has a whole slate of issues.
Yeah. Yeah, there are definite trade-offs. But I mean, the only thing I would add to that is not only entertainment, right?
Not only entertainment. Exactly. Right. I mean, I just say that because that's what I know. And I do this all the time.
Yeah. And so it's I guess people refer to it as kind of the gig economy, going from gig to gig, hoping there's another gig, hoping it pays well, hoping it's not a miserable experience.
Yeah. And then, right now I'm in Canada for this comedy festival. And, I sort of slipped up and I was just like, oh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. It would all make more sense if we had healthcare. And then I remember, oh, yeah, all the comics here have healthcare. And just the idea that is not on their plate.
Did you say that?
Yeah.
So was there an ensuing conversation with all these Canadians?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of said, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, we don't have to worry about that." And that's when basically the Canadians show their pride, is whenever anyone all of a sudden slips into the blah blah blah. And then we actually got in a big discussion, dark immediately, about the program here called MAID, which is basically if you are of sound decision making mental capacity, you can make the decision to end your life. Ooh. If there is you have a terrible diagnosis. Yeah. So, and what it is like to apply for MAID. So there you go.
I want to look more into that, but I mean, I guess that's dark for sure, but it's also, physician assisted suicide or euthanasia, that's whatever right. People refer to it. I think that's a perfectly sound idea. I don't see the controversy around that for people who are, say, terminally ill, for people who are right. who are older. Obviously, if you're an adolescent, you're dealing with depression and all that. I think that's a different story. But I mean, I don't know. I think that's increasingly becoming more acceptable.
It is. And actually, people were talking about, in this case, their elderly parents, yep. but that they were trying to make choices with them around their parents' wishes because you have to make this choice individually, but if there for any reason that you lose your capacity in whatever is considered the list of things that you have to check mark in order to be like, I can make a sound decision for myself. If you lose that, you cannot do this. There will never be a situation where you have a stroke, you have no you have such advanced Alzheimer's that someone else will make that decision for you. So still, there's no murder. Okay. Just want to point that out. There's no murder yet.
Yeah, well, I could talk about that for a long time. There's this HBO documentary I watched and interviewed the filmmaker years ago, and it really stuck with me, called Alternate Endings, 6 Ways to Die in America. And it shows all of these different people who made that choice. And if you watch that documentary, at the end of it, it's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty persuasive. They're taking you through actual people's decisions, lives that made this decision. And there's not one of them that I don't know, most viewers, I think, would be like, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I understand that painful decision.
I don't disagree with it. I know a lot of people who their parents, have said, I see what path I'm going down. I witnessed this with my own parents. I don't want to become that. I wish I could do this. So, and then a lot of other people go, oh, this is just an economic decision to try to make people not a strain on the healthcare system. So they go from it that, like, how dare they? This is all economic. And part of me also goes like, well, that is part. Don't you think that's part of it?
Fine. I mean, it's not like they're forcing people to end their lives. We could say it's morbid, but I think, it's not a controversial idea to die with some dignity on your own terms. I think we should all be so lucky.
Yeah. So this is the kind of discussions that we have at a Halifax Comedy Festival. It's pretty fun.
I love that. I miss hanging out with comedians just for those conversations that can be had without kind of having any guardrails on them for the most part. How is it going up there? You're in Nova Scotia. Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's an island off of the coast. I went there when I was a little boy. And I remember thinking, why would you take your kids here? There's nothing to do here. But it's beautiful. And it's, I suppose it's probably fun if you're an adult. I did go to some fishing village and met a kid and had a kind of extraordinary experience with this kid who was so culturally different than me. And he was showing me all this stuff about the fishing boat he works on with his dad. We were both around the same age, but that's like my main memory. What's Nova Scotia like? What are you doing there?
So Halifax is, the town. So I'm told it's, spring here, but it's a little colder. Play into that stereotype. It is colder, everybody. It's colder. But so the people in Halifax are building. Everywhere I look around me, there are massive condos, I believe, being built. Condos. And I think housing prices are being driven up. They all say something that we have heard very similar. Well, during the pandemic, the people in the major cities looked at their life and went, no, I'm not going to put up with the space and expense. And so a lot of them moved to Halifax. If they could live anywhere, why not? Because it's pretty relaxed. There's lots of space. It's quite beautiful and it's affordable. But now it's there's condos everywhere. There's condos going up everywhere. So everyone's freaking out. Some people like it. Some people don't like it. I also went to a restaurant down the street that had New York pizza. Just want to tell you right now, that first offended me. And second, I tried their pizza. It was not New York pizza. Okay. I'm going to put it somewhere between Boston and Chicago.
I just don't understand why it's so hard to recreate pizza.
I don't know.
It's not.
I don't know.
If you have the proper oven, I think the oven is the thing, and the rest you can kind of get from anywhere. The dough, the sauce, the cheese. What's so special about New York pizza? I don't know.
Just the thin crust, and I'm also like, yeah, whatever. It's just I had it. It was a bunch of stuff on some dough. It was in an oven. Tasted great, but don't call it New York pizza. But I also went to another restaurant here called Elliot and Vine. It was very nice, but I thought it unexpected in Halifax. So I think you know this, that when you go travel around to cities in America or anywhere, they love saying, if you go to a cool coffee shop or an interesting bar, they love saying, oh yeah, this is like the Brooklyn of our town.
Right.
This like branding of Brooklyn, Brooklyn is such a not a homogenous thing. So it's so funny. I'm like, oh, do you mean like is it Orthodox Jewish or is it extremely Italian? Or are you talking about like, what are we talking about here? Oh, you mean just hipster. So there is a word I wish we could find for this homogenization of the boutique bistro, because I walk into this nice restaurant. It is really nice, but it could be in Santa Monica or in Brooklyn or in like whatever the cool street is in your town. And it is like that. It's got some nice wines. It's got mahi-mahi. It's got a pork belly. Like, you know, in some ways, I'm like, we have figured out how to make the boutique bistro experience generic.
I'm fine with it. I like it. I like it to be generic. I'm not that easily impressed, or I am easily impressed, I should say. I'm easily impressed.
Yeah, we've gapped it out. Like, we've done it. We've figured out a way to just be like, this is the cookie cutter way to do this. Make sure that the "and" in your title is an ampersand for branding.
Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah. And so it's kind of funny how there's that influx. I think some people who live here is like, oh, I miss the days when this was kind of a authentic fishing village.
Right.
And it is becoming more and more city with some fine dining. And like, if you don't go to a pub for your crab, go to this nice place with the ampersand and the pretty font.
So based on everything you just said, it seems like Canada, well, certainly Nova Scotia at least, is becoming a more affluent place, thus tougher to afford to live there for a lot of people.
That's right. Yes. And I, like every other New Yorker, come here and I look around, and my second question, other than like, where's the good coffee, is, so what does real estate go for around here?
Yeah.
Always looking for the escape pod, everybody. Yep. Always looking for the escape pod.
I was talking with, I think, Christian yesterday about this. He just got back from Iceland, and same question to you.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, for his 50th birthday. They seemed to have a great time, and, well, they definitely did. But it's like everywhere you go on vacation, you think for a good amount of time, could I live here? Should I live here? And then you realize you can't, and you shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe you do.
That's right. And who are you? And then, when 2 weeks ago for spring break, I took my child to Disney World. And I looked around at everyone there and I thought, oh, well, first I was there. I would just like to point out to all your Florida listeners, not one point did I think, oh, we should move here. Right. Not even once.
Right. I lived there. I lived there and worked at Disney World. Did you know that?
No.
In my college, between my first 2 years of college, I did my internship at Epcot Center, at fast food joints at Epcot Center.
So were you taken care of as a Disney talent?
Was I taken care of?
Yeah. What was it like to work for that company?
Oh, yeah. It was awesome. I loved it. It was a great experience that I had. It was really, really hard work, like little to no money. It's $5.60 an hour in 1994. But the idea that I was working in Disney World was really cool because it really was it is the happiest place on earth, because people save up money or they're very excited. If you work at a resort, usually people are there and they're pretty happy because they're on vacation. They're at this place that maybe they've always wanted to go. And Disney is definitely that. So the energy there is amazing. I felt that. But did you have a good time? Did you guys enjoy yourselves? Was that a place your son wanted to go?
Yeah. I mean, like I was just like, we got to do this for our son because we both were denied it. My husband and I were both denied it as in our childhood. So I was like, let's just do it. We went during spring break. So it was crazy high season. It was very crowded. My son at one point said, why are we waiting in line? We're New Yorkers. We don't wait in line. And I was like, simmer down there, little Brooklyn kiddo. This is the way the rest of the world works. Okay. And we could wait in lines in New York. We are just impatient in New York. So we don't.
You didn't go fast pass?
We did everything that we could. And it's still, you were waiting in lines because it was so crowded. Yeah. So I will say the rides were cool. All the rides we took were super cool. They're Star Wars. The rides in the Star Wars land are incredible. They're so good. They're so well done. The creativity is insane. So we get there and my son's like, I want to go to this Monsters, Inc. thing. And I was like, all right, whatever. I don't know what it is. It's not a ride, Pete. It's a show.
Oh.
It is a stand-up show. I find myself on my first day of Disney World at 9 a.m. in a stand-up show where the characters from Monsters, Inc., voiced by real people, are doing crowd work with an international audience of little kids and their parents. And you know what? They are killing.
Sure.
They are killing. I laughed. I was so mad at myself for laughing.
That's so great. That is a hilarious story. Yeah. You, 9 a.m. watching And there you are in your life. Wow. That's funny. I could see you getting into trouble there. So it's like saying the wrong thing if you're the Disney performer.
Oh my God. I couldn't. I thought about how hard that job is.
Yeah.
And then you know what I also thought? W-2 income.
Yeah. You know what else I thought? Who books this?
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That is exact. I was like, would I trade this? Would I trade drunky 23-year-olds at midnight to this international crowd of children and their parents in the morning?
You're in Canada. I love comedy in Canada. I did the Montreal Comedy Festival, and that was it. But of course, it's a big deal. It's a really culturally significant thing. Comedy, stand-up comedy specifically in Canada. So many great comedians like you have come from there. So what are the shows like? How's that Halifax, Nova Scotia Comedy Festival? I looked at the lineup. A lot of really great talent.
So, I mean, yeah, it's like this. I'm not going to say I'm sad about it because that sounds like an insane emotion, but these comics are amazing, right? They're all working comics. They are great. They're top of their game. Just a lot of Americans don't know their name, but they're huge in Canada, and they put together these shows. Pete, there's just, there's a lot of money involved in this. They take it seriously. These are like 5 camera shoots, super professional.
Oh, wow.
There's a jib rolling around because they're all being taped for Canadian television. And it's like a real thing. It sounds so small and provincial, right? When I say Halifax Comedy Festival, you're like, oh, that's cute. Are you guys in the basement of a pub? It's
right.
like a thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, we don't get to see that. We won't get to watch it though, will we?
I don't know if you hack into Canadian television. I don't know how to do that.
You are up there during a major and a very impactful strike in Canada, and we're on the cusp of a potentially a very impactful strike here in America with the writer's strike. I kind of want to talk about both of them with you, but there's a public worker strike in Canada across the country right now. Is that right?
Yeah, and I mean the amount. So it's right. It's called the Public Service Alliance of Canada. Those employees. And it is a huge amount of people. And just imagine in America if Homeland Security went on strike, which I don't think that's possible. I can't even imagine how that would be possible. But I do remember they were, of course, like in a reduced capacity during COVID. But just think of that small agency. Here, just a couple of departments that in Canada that are on strike. Transport Canada, like all of the trains and mostly I'm talking about resources being floated around this country, which a lot of it, as you know, is by train, same in America. Oh, Taxation Canada Revenue Agency. So everyone is freaking out about their taxes and wondering how that's going to work out. All the immigration services, all those people, you can't get a passport. You can't renew a passport. You can't apply for any kind of visa or citizenship. There's libraries. You can't take out a book. The RCMP, okay? The icons of Canada for the international world. Those cops on horses, they're on strike.
Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
That's correct. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Damn. You're just visiting. So is it affecting you? And what's the tone? Like, by the way, I'm just reading about it here. The issues, one of the big issues is that they want telework, working from home, remote work, to be enshrined in the contracts of 150,000 striking federal civil servants who say their union, it's good for the environment, their own well-being, and the public they serve. Why is that such a sticking point, I wonder? Huh? This is what I think. So I can't speak to how it works in Canada, but this is like the breakdown we're always talking about in all of the industries post-COVID. Everybody wants to work from home. The banking industry wants to work from home. The advertising industry wants to work from home. All of these people. And then I think in New York, people are pushing for the offices because they signed 40-year leases. Oh, the owners, the business owner, is pushing. Yeah. But wait, just to be clear, are you talking about both America and Canada and other countries as well want to
nobody wants to go into work.
Right.
Everyone's like, let's work from home. But that completely derails a lot of the economy.
Does it though? I mean, can they connect that it's hurting the economy for people to be working from home? Is that?
Yeah, well, it's just the thing that, right. So then what do we do with all these office building spaces? I mean, I am so pro people working from home and these places being changed further. But that's like a long-term goal. Yeah. Right. You can't just be like, all right, let's make all of the offices affordable housing or grocery stores or like, what else do we need? I don't know. There's things people need. So there's that. And then it's like, what about all of the businesses that opened up around offices because they knew that that's where these people will go to eat their sandwich or send a FedEx, or like all of that will have to be rethought of. So it's like completely rethinking how we look at a city or how we look at like these industrial parks all over the place, right? Where people drive into the middle of nowhere to these complexes. Those are all going to be like, so what happens to that? Gone. It's a big, I love the idea of like, you know, I'm very much like, let's burn it to the ground and start again. But I can also appreciate that it's kind of a big deal.
It's also the reason why you're not on any decision-making board. Because you've just
Let's go to our CEO.
You just made so many interesting points of the nuances of, you know, both sides and why it doesn't work. And then you're like, but you know, I'm also think we should burn it all. So.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone likes the idea of money that will be seen in 20 years. Everyone's like, how can I get it now? So that's the problem.
That's really interesting. We'll see. You know, I had no idea until I talked to you about this strike, and I pay pretty close attention to the news. It's been 10 days it's going on there, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. What are we saying? What are we saying and thinking? I'm going to talk with comedy writer Mike Royce. Do you know Mike Royce?
Mike Royce, I know the name.
He's a comedian. He came up in the New York scene way ahead of us, but he moved out to L.A. and was a writer on Everybody Loves Raymond and so on. So I'll talk to him about this, but I want to get your thoughts on it too. I don't think you're in the WGA, but
I'm not.
But the Writers Guild of America, I mean, like, you know, I work on Last Week Tonight. I haven't mentioned this on the show yet. And that show may be closing down. A lot of the late night shows, a lot of sitcoms, a lot of obviously written shows. This is going to be a very big and impactful deal. And I wonder what your thoughts are about it. And I wonder what you're hearing about your friends in entertainment, about their thoughts about it.
Yeah, everyone's freaked out because they're on hold, right? So right now it hasn't happened yet, but this is like kind of the worst place right now because it's the potential, it's the impending, and so there's so much feeling of people being like, oh, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And in light of that, things are just on hold. Writing projects are on hold. Pitching is on hold. All these things are on hold. Like you are in an active thing, so it's going to go till the last minute. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we'll go to the last minute. But anything new, of course, is completely on hold. And then the one thing I think would change stuff is that there's so much reality programming, and reality programming, even though it's considered non-scripted, is, as we all know, scripted. There are boatloads of writers on every single one of these reality shows. And it is well thought out before that camera is rolling. So those people are actually not considered writers as part of this strike. So reality will continue, and probably more reality will be made, I imagine. But if those writers, if all of those programs were part of this strike, I feel like there would be more of a pressure to get this.
Yeah. But that's absolutely right. But because they would have no content, but that's never going to
content.
That's never going to happen. You don't need. Your point is, while reality shows act like they're not written, they are written. They're at least loosely scripted out. It's not word for word the way that a sitcom or a film or any number of other shows that writers work on. But it's doable. It's satisfiable. It satisfies. Like, I just feel like the Netflix and all the networks, they'll be fine with those types of shows for a while. They've got all kinds of content. They're not worried. We're like, yeah, we've been loading up on reality programming, and and the public won't notice that their favorite shows are gone or on hold for a long time, I'm guessing. So I think we're in for a really difficult time, including for me. I mean, like, it's good money I make over there last week tonight, but it's going to shut down.
Of course.
Yeah.
And here is the other thing that will come out of the strike that is terrible. Terrible. You know what's going to happen? More podcasts. Oh,
yeah. 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 Shit. I'll do a few more. I'm going to do 6 episodes a day now. Are you available to tape with me, Ophira, for next to nothing, dollars-wise, every day? For 6 months?
Pretty much. So that is, of course, the first thing I thought of. I was like, oh, all these writers are going to hop on microphones and make a podcast.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Well, that'll be a lot of great new content. Well,
because, during the pandemic, I will say that when I was like talking to a lot of people in a lot of different podcast companies, and they were talking about scripted podcasts, they were telling me that they had received pitches that were so clearly television pilots that they didn't, like, some of the writers didn't even take out the camera directions.
Oh my God.
They were just like, okay, this is not being made right now because of the pandemic, so can we just make it a podcast?
I guess that's not that heavy of a lift. I mean, sitcom's hard to make. A podcast is not.
No, and all the writers all the actors can just voice it from their home.
I don't think I would listen to that. I don't know. I thought about it for a second. I don't think I would listen to, like, it's like a radio drama, like an old-timey.
It's like a radio drama. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be interested in that. I'd rather watch, like, Love Island than some cleverly written radio sitcom. By the way, get ready for a whole bunch more Love Island type shows. Why don't you just start pitching? We should just pitch the worst reality, like the most immoral type of reality show programming that people will love to watch.
Hate Island. Let's start with Hate Island.
Just filled with bigots of all types. And then introduce to them the people that they hate and see who lives.
And see who lives.
Hate That's Island. Right. Done. Pitched.
We found an island of hate. I would be into Hate Island. I'd be like, this is, that's what all of this stuff is. It's like just cleverly disguising the worst people of all time.
Yes.
So why don't just put it on the front?
Or it's like not necessarily cleverly disguised. You're talking about reality show programming. It's like you're playing up how much of a dick you are. Like, you're going to be the jerk on the show. I mean, it's been so long since I watched anything like that, but my daughters watch it like crazy. Those types of shows. And I always try to, not anymore. I barely say anything, but it's like, that's all, forget it. But, they play up like, oh, you're the villain. You be the villain. And then you once you're in that role, you start to become you play it up. I mean, it's not real. It's just you.
It's called scripted.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and what if Pete? Oh, now I'm just on a tangent here. What if we pitched Hate Island or whatever? And instead of the Bachelor or the Bachelorette, it's like the breakup, the jerk, whatever. The enabler. Whatever these are, and it's just, we start with the idea that these are the worst people on the planet and they're just going to get worse. And what happens if that is our premise? If people turn nice?
Oh, I like that.
What if the opposite thing happens? We're like, no, you're here to be the villain. And they're like, no, I want to be the hero.
Well, it's funny that you said it, because the truth about kind of prejudice and bigotry and racism is often just ignorance, and that you haven't been around these types of people that you hate, and then all of a sudden you're put in a place with them. You're like, man, I didn't realize that you could be a good person, that I would like you so much. I was raised to hate your kind, and now I'm working with you every day on a thing, and you're actually a pretty good guy. I mean, that's usually how people come to enlightenment, I think, being introduced to the people they actually have grown up to be taught to hate, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I think this is what we should do. We've actually we figured it out.
Was there any conversation with all these Canadians? Have you done any shitting on America and how we becoming Gilead or anything like that? Did they talk about that? Or did the comedians talk about America in their act? Do you talk about it off stage?
So I haven't seen anyone talk about America in their act, but I have had a couple people just say to me, "What is going on in Florida?"
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's kind of wild. And then a guy who, this is just about Canada, but I thought he was talking about America. This guy I just overheard talking, he was like, yeah. And then these teenagers just stabbed people on the subway. And I was like, that's sensationalist news. That is not happening in New York. And he goes, no, I'm talking about Toronto.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I was like, Subway is ruined everywhere. So that's good.
Subway's not ruined anywhere, is it really, though?
I mean, listen, I didn't go fact check whether teenagers are stabbing people on the Toronto subway, but I was very interested in the fact that it's I don't think that the New York subway is great, for example, but I also find it very interesting, this fear about public transportation. And then I start going down a conspiracy path about like, who would benefit if we really made public transportation seem like a very scary place?
The automobile manufacturers?
Sure would. Yeah.
Well, that's a silly conspiracy theory. But I like that you entertained it for at least a couple minutes.
That's how I go. And then I go, because maybe with people being worried about the environment or anyways,
if you want to do a conspiracy theory about the automobile industry, I think that they've always been I don't think it's a conspiracy, it's out in the open, always in collaboration with the oil industry to keep the oil industry wants them to keep their combustion engines. That is coming apart though now because the automobile industry doesn't care and doesn't want anything to do with the oil industry now that electric cars are so freaking awesome and it's definitely the future. So, before I let you go, I love to talk mental health with you. You reached out to me not too long ago about something about meditation. We never connected about that. How are you doing? How's things going? How's your day-to-day? How's your practice?
Oh, my day-to-day is a mess. I have a lot of lists about how I should do it and a lot of zero execution. How about you?
My day-to-day has been really pretty good for the last couple of months.
That's great.
I definitely struggle. I have my struggles for sure. But for the most part, it's been pretty consistent. My main thing continues to be financial security, but things with Val and I have been pretty good and the girls are doing well. And, like at the beginning of my meditation every day, if I do it almost every day, I like kind of check in with like the people closest in my life. So I start there with kind of a gratitude and then I can seemingly spiral out from that. But I feel like I've got this practice now that's working for me pretty good. When you say that you have this list or checklist, are you talking about specifically one thing that you should be doing or not doing or something?
It's sort of, and this is why we will connect and I will completely try to dissect what your plan is. But it's sort of like, all right, a little bit like from 8 to 8:15, I'll, try meditating. Then from 8:15 to blah, blah, blah. And this idea of if I had complete control of how to start my morning, how I would do it sort of influence a, better mindset for the entire day. And then usually by about 8:05, the whole thing has been derailed.
Yeah, that's the most normal thing in the world. It's really hard to have.
And so it's hard to figure that out.
Yeah, it's really hard to have routine. I think we need to be forgiving of ourselves when it doesn't work out. My main thing is to try to do 20 minutes of meditation, 20 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of writing, and 20 minutes of exercise. And ideally, I would do it all at the beginning of the day because it just resets me and works on my anxiety really effectively. But it's very hard to get it all done at the beginning of the day, much less throughout the day at all. But that's the goal. That's the goal, is to try to get those things, those 4 things in to my day. I rarely get it all done, especially with the writing. I don't write, my journal every day, but it works. When I do it, it absolutely works every time. Resets me.
Yeah, I know. And the one thing that I've done, I will say on the mental health thing, when I remember this in my head, it really is helpful. So I'll let my anxieties kind of go a little unchecked. And then, of course, they build on each other, and the voice in the head that can really catastrophize things very quickly. And I, too, am very focused on financial security. So I'll start with, today might be okay, but tomorrow, and then this could, and I think that is very much because once you know what it's like to lose something, you are more afraid of it because it's hard rebuilding. Yes. You think that you would be more resilient, but in some ways I'm like, I'm just more fearful because I know what it's like.
Yes. Oh, that's interesting and honest. Yeah.
But then I often, and I think I borrowed this from one of the books I read, that if I look at that voice that is, putting me through all the anxiety, heavy lifting, and I were to think about that as a person sitting beside me as on the couch, I would be like, oh my God, could you leave? You are so fucking annoying. And then you can sort of separate yourself from it.
Oh, I like that.
If you're like, that I would never live with that person. That person would be the worst choice of a roommate. They would be unreliable and awful to be around. Like, what bad, gross energy. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's me. That's me talking to me. Cool.
That is really very intelligent and mindful of you to be able to recognize that. It's so hard to recognize that voice in your own head. You've done it in a hilarious way just now, but the truth is you don't really realize the thoughts that you're thinking before they get away from you most of the time. That's and to be mindful of and to hear and not listen to that voice, but like, all right, listen, like as you just said, the two wolves, which one are you going to feed? And we so often feed the wrong one, but I like the way that you just framed it. Like, I wouldn't like that person is a great, that's awesome. I never really thought of it.
Yeah. I would be like, I would never talk to that person again. I'd be like, can we not invite that person over ever?
That's
Please.
So good. Oh, I like it. All right. Before I let you go, I do want to mention your podcast, Parenting is a Joke. I just saw when I was getting ready to talk to you that you just interviewed Lori Kilmartin.
The best.
I don't want to categorize you as a female comedian or her, but I'm going to say that you two are the two I'm closest with and admire the most. So to see that you sat down with her made me really happy, but immediately made me wonder what your friendship is like with her. Because I would imagine there's a lot of, like, I have my assumptions, but like, are you guys friendly? Are you close? Or is it more of like, colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of colleagues, mostly because I don't have an opportunity to hang out with her very often because we don't live in the same city. Right. And, and obviously she's very focused on her work. So I don't get to see her very often. But there's a warmth about our interaction that makes me always feel like, oh yeah, we are sort of closer than I think just the proximity thing. And I will admit, I look up to her. So there's a little bit, I have a little bit of that thing. I look up to her because I am just like, how you are so good and so prolific. Yes. And I will say this about Lori Kilmartin. The way she talks about stand-up is someone talking about, like, truly love stand-up. Like, she was talking about stand-up in Europe, and it wasn't from the point of view of making money or, witnessing something, a big career move. It was like she was so curious. She just wanted to know what it was like, what the audience was into, how it would feel. Like, she's curious. And I was like, you are a true stand-up. You have to do it, and you truly love doing it because you love this art form, which in some ways is rare.
That's very, very well said about her. I can't wait to hear your conversation. I mean, your podcast is Parenting is a Joke. She's got a son who's how old now? And
16.
And your son is what?
7.
And so, but the point is, I'm sure you talk a lot about parenting, but God, I would listen to you and her talk about just about anything for forever. I'm really looking forward to hearing that episode. So,
oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's very inspiring too, because she is, she works hard, very, very hard. And also that entire interview, she was a great interview because she was both that thing that you love where you're getting real answers, but it was funny.
Yeah. Well, this is a weird thing to say, but I'm going to end our conversation and go listen to your conversation with Lori Kilmartin on Parenting is a Joke.
More in your ears.
thank you so much for joining me. Safe travels back. It's been way too long, and I'm so happy to have talked to you, and good luck up there. The rest of the shows.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll bring you back something from Canada.
You won't, will you?
I don't know. A little touch of healthcare.
That'd be nice. Thank you, Ophira.
Thanks, Pete.
Ophira's bringing me weed.
Right.
All right, there she goes, Ophira Eisenberg. Another great talk about everything. A general conversation with a smart, funny, thoughtful human being, Ophira Eisenberg. Go listen to her podcast, Parenting is a Joke. And thank you for listening to this one. Thank you for supporting it. Thank you for editing your pledge up or paying more. Many of you have been doing that, and that's a positive sign. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And if you haven't subscribed, then please do. StandUpWithPete.com, Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. This is my primary source of income. This is my job. This is my daily work, and I'd always love to hear from you how to make it better. So let me know anytime you want. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I've got a great guest joining me, Emmy Award-winning former head writer and showrunner of Everybody Loves Raymond, the great Mike Royce. Talks about his life, career, the Writers Guild strike, and more. I'm almost positive that's going to be tomorrow's show, but definitely going to share that with you this week. We just caught up, and he's from my hometown of Syracuse as well, 10 years older than me. It was really great to catch up with one of my comedic idols, and I'll be bringing that to you and much more this week on Stand Up with Pete Dominic Daily, including our hangout on Thursday nights. Love you guys. John Carroll, take us away.
The devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, to make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.